You wake up, grab your phone, and the first thing you do is check how many likes that photo got. 37, not enough. Delete. Try another angle, another filter, another version of yourself, one that's more marketable, more accepted, more you, or would it be less? This anxiety you feel right now, this emptiness that seems to grow with every story you watch, every perfect profile you encounter, it's not an accident, it's design. And Zygmunt Bauman knew this before Instagram even existed. You think you're building your identity, choosing who to be, assembling your profile like someone assembling a puzzle, each piece carefully selected, the music that shows your refined taste, the ironic bio that proves you don't take yourself too seriously, the photos that tell the story of someone interesting, well-traveled, cultured, someone worth following, someone who exists. But what if I told you you're not building anything, that you're just buying? Bauman called this liquid modernity, a world where everything solid has melted away, where identities are no longer inherited or built over a lifetime, but consumed, discarded, and replaced like fast fashion clothes. You're no longer John's son, Mary's grandson, the corner baker everyone's known for 20 years. You are your latest posts, your stories, your last update. And tomorrow? Tomorrow you can be something else, need to be something else, because the identity you bought today will already be out of style. Think about how your grandparents defined themselves, by the profession they practiced their whole lives, by the neighborhood where they lived for decades, by the values they inherited and intended to pass on. Now think about yourself. How many times you've changed your bio this year? How many personalities you've tried on? How many versions of yourself you've discarded because they didn't generate enough engagement? Does this bother you? It should. Because while you think you're freeing yourself from the shackles of the past, becoming fluid, adaptable, modern, you're just trading one prison for another, a much more subtle prison, much more cruel. Because at least your grandparents knew who they were. You need to decide that every morning. And worse, you need others to validate your choice. Every like is a vote. Every view, a confirmation that you exist, that you matter, that you are. If you've made it this far, it's because something in this conversation is resonating. Don't close yet. Like, subscribe, but most importantly, stay. Because in the next few minutes, we're going to shatter this illusion of freedom you call identity. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find something real beneath all these masks you've learned to switch. They told you that you could be anything. Remember, your teachers, your parents, those motivational speakers on YouTube. You're not limited by your circumstances. You're not defined by your past. You can reinvent yourself. You can choose your own adventure, and you believed them. Why wouldn't you? It sounded like freedom. It sounded like power. It sounded like everything humanity had been fighting for since we first questioned why the king's son gets to be king. But here's what they didn't tell you. When everything is possible, nothing is certain. When you can be anything, you risk being nothing. Bauman saw this coming. He watched as the solid structures of modernity, stable careers, lifelong marriages, unchanging communities, melted into liquid. And he asked the question no one wanted to hear. What happens to human beings when nothing stays still long enough to hold on to? You were taught that flexibility is strength, that the ability to adapt, to pivot, to rebrand yourself is the ultimate survival skill in the 21st century. Be water, they said. Flow around obstacles. Take the shape of whatever container you're in. But water has no shape of its own, and neither do you anymore. Look at your LinkedIn profile. How many times have you updated it? From passionate about marketing to growth hacker to digital nomad entrepreneur to whatever buzzword is trending this quarter. You're not building expertise. You're collecting keywords. You're not developing mastery. You're surfing trends. And deep down, in those 3 a.m. moments when the notifications stop coming and you're alone with yourself, you know it. The myth says you're free because you have choices. Infinite choices. You can be a minimalist this month and a maximalist. The next, you can be spiritual on Sunday and nihilistic on Monday. You can care about the environment when it's trendy and forget about it when crypto is having a moment. But Bauman would ask you, is this freedom, or is this the most sophisticated form of control ever invented? Because when identity becomes a product, someone has to be selling it, and someone is. Every influencer pushing a lifestyle, every brand telling you that their products will make you more yourself. Every algorithm learning what version of you gets the most engagement and feeding it back to you until you can't tell where you end and the feedback loop begins. Your grandparents might have been stuck in their roles, but at least they knew the script. You're improvising every single day, and the exhaustion you feel isn't from living, it's from performing, from the constant, relentless pressure to curate, to optimize, to be your best self, as if your actual self was somehow not enough. As if you were a startup that needed to show growth every quarter or risk being shut down. The freedom to be anything has become the obligation to be everything. And that's not freedom at all. You're standing in a hall of mirrors, but every reflection shows a different person. One is the professional you, polished and ambitious. Another is the weekend you, carefree and adventurous. There's the family you, the dating app you, the Twitter you, the work Slack you. Each one carefully calibrated for its audience, each one real in its own way, each one a performance. And you're so busy managing all these versions that you've forgotten to ask, which one is actually you? Bauman called this the liquid modern predicament. You're not trapped by tradition or convention. You're trapped by infinite possibility, by the tyranny of choice, by the constant need to perform your own existence. It's like being an actor who never gets to leave the stage, who forgot there ever was a life outside the theater. Think about the last time you posted something online, the mental calculations you made. Will this get likes? Does it fit my brand? Is it too vulnerable? Not vulnerable enough? You're not just sharing, you're strategizing. You're not just living, you're marketing. Every moment becomes content, every experience a potential post. You can't even watch a sunset without thinking about the caption. This is your prison. Not made of bars, but of expectations. Not guarded by wardens, but by algorithms. You're free to leave anytime you want. But where would you go? Who would you be? Without the likes, the comments, the constant feedback telling you you're on the right track, how would you know you exist? Bauman saw how consumer culture would colonize identity itself, how the market would turn the self into its ultimate product. You don't just buy things anymore. You buy ways of being. That meditation app isn't just teaching you to breathe. It's selling you a version of yourself that's centered and mindful. That gym membership isn't just about fitness. It's about becoming someone who goes to the gym. Someone who posts about going to the gym. Someone who performs health and discipline for an audience that's always watching. The cruelest part? You know it's a game. You know the Instagram life isn't real life. You know the LinkedIn version of everyone is fiction, but you play anyway, because everyone else is playing, because opting out feels like disappearing. Because in liquid modernity, if you're not updating, you're not existing. You've become liquid yourself, flowing into whatever shape the moment demands. Professional at 9, creative at noon, philosophical at midnight. Each transition seamless, each performance convincing. But liquid has no core, no center, no self to return to when the show is over. You're method acting your own life, and you've been in character so long you've forgotten who you were before the role. The freedom to be anyone has become the curse of being no one. A ghost haunting your own existence. A curator in a museum where all the art is fake, but the price of admission is your soul. Bauman didn't just diagnose the problem, he lived through the transformation. Born in Poland in 1925, he watched the solid world of his youth dissolve. He saw identities that had been fixed for generations become fluid overnight. Jewish one day, Polish the next, refugee after that. He knew what it meant when identity became negotiable, when who you are became a question of survival. In his masterwork, Liquid Modernity, Bauman revealed how the market transformed from selling products to selling possibilities of being. You don't buy a car. You buy the identity of someone who drives that car. You don't choose a coffee shop. You choose what kind of person goes to that coffee shop. Every purchase is a vote for who you want to be today. Every brand is a potential identity waiting to be tried on. But here's what Bauman understood that the self-help gurus don't. This isn't liberation, it's liquidation, the liquidation of the self. When everything about you becomes choosable, changeable, disposable, then nothing about you is essential. You become a collection of accessories, a playlist of personalities, a portfolio of possible selves, none of them quite real, all of them for sale. He wrote about tourists and vagabonds. The tourists, those with resources, can afford to play with identity, to try on new selves like designer clothes, to move through liquid modernity like it's an adventure. But the vagabonds, those without, are moved by it, forced to adapt, to flexibility, to reinvent themselves not for fun, but for survival. Guess which one you are. Guess which one most of us are. The liquid modern self is haunted by what Bauman called the specter of redundancy, the fear that you'll become obsolete, that your current identity will expire, that you'll fail to update yourself in time. It's why you feel that constant anxiety, that pressure to keep moving, keep changing, keep becoming. Because in liquid modernity, staying still is death. Being consistent is failure. Having a fixed identity is a luxury you can't afford. But Bauman also saw something else. He saw how the liquid modern individual becomes insatiable, how no identity is ever enough because there's always another one to try, how the promise of infinite possibility becomes the prison of infinite dissatisfaction. You're not choosing between identities. You're drowning in them, not liberated by options, paralyzed by them. In Liquid Love, he explored how this affects our relationships, how we treat other people the way we treat ourselves, as disposable, upgradable, replaceable, how we swipe through humans like we swipe through identities, how we ghost, unfollow, unfriend with the same casual cruelty we use to delete old versions of ourselves. The consumer society promised to free us from the tyranny of tradition. Instead, it gave us the tyranny of choice, the dictatorship of possibility, the authoritarian rule of the algorithm. And the cruelest part is we police ourselves. We internalize the market. We become our own brand managers, our own quality control, our own harshest critics. Bauman knew the perfect prison is the one you build yourself. So here you are, scrolling through this realization like you scroll through everything else. Part of you wants to dismiss it, to tell yourself Bauman was just another pessimistic sociologist who didn't understand the empowerment of self-expression, that your carefully curated feed is authentic actually, that you're in control of your identity, not the other way around. But another part of you, the part that's exhausted from performing, tired of becoming, sick of optimizing, knows better. Knows that you haven't felt real in years, that you've been playing a character so long you've forgotten it's a role, that somewhere between your third career pivot and your fifth personality rebrand, you lost something essential, something that can't be bought back. You are not your Instagram feed. You are not your LinkedIn profile. You are not the sum of your streaming preferences or your shopping history. But you've been pretending to be for so long that the performance has become the reality. The mask has fused to your face. The character has eaten the actor. Remember the last time you did something without documenting it, without turning it into content, without calculating its impact on your personal brand? That silence you just felt. That's the sound of your real self, starved for attention, gasping for air. While you've been busy becoming, it's been dying. While you've been optimizing, it's been withering. While you've been performing, it's been disappearing. You're not the entrepreneur you play on LinkedIn. You're not the activist you perform on Twitter. You're not the aesthete you curate on Instagram. You're the exhausted human behind all these screens, running multiple shows simultaneously, wondering why none of them feel quite right, why the applause never satisfies, why the likes never fill the void. Bauman would tell you that this isn't your fault, that you're not weak for feeling lost in liquid modernity, that you're not broken for struggling with infinite choice, that the system is designed to make you feel this way, to keep you anxious, unsatisfied, always becoming, never being, because a satisfied self is a self that stops buying. A fixed identity is an identity that can't be monetized. But he'd also tell you something else, that recognizing the liquid modern trap is the first step to escaping it, that understanding how consumer culture colonized your identity is the beginning of decolonization, that seeing the performance as performance is how you start to remember who's behind the mask. You thought you were free because you could choose who to be. But real freedom isn't about having infinite options. It's about having the courage to stop choosing, to stop becoming, to stop performing, to risk being nothing in a world that demands you be everything, to find what remains when you stop flowing. What's left when the liquid evaporates, who you are when nobody's watching. The trained you wants to optimize this insight, to turn it into a new identity, the authentic one, the real one, the one who's transcended liquid modernity. Don't. That's just another performance, another product, another trap. There's a moment in every performance when the actor forgets the audience, when the character drops away and something real breaks through, when the mask slips and humanity shows. That's the moment Bauman was pointing to, not the end of identity, but the beginning of being. Not the death of the self, but its birth. You can't escape liquid modernity by becoming solid. That world is gone. Your grandparents' fixed identities, their stable careers, their unchanging communities, they're not coming back. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the problem isn't fluidity itself, but the market's colonization of it. Maybe the issue isn't change, but the compulsion to constantly perform it. What if you stop treating your identity as a product to be optimized? What if you stop seeing yourself as a brand to be managed? What if you let yourself be inconsistent, contradictory, unfinished? What if you posted without calculating, spoke without strategizing, existed without performing? Bauman spent his life studying liquid modernity, not to make us nostalgic for solid times, but to make us conscious of our condition, to help us see the strings so we could cut them, to show us the performance so we could choose when to stop. He knew we couldn't go back, but he believed we could go forward differently. The solution isn't to find your one true self. In liquid modernity, there is no one true self. The solution is to stop looking, to stop buying, to stop performing, to let yourself be multiple without being marketed, to be fluid without being for sale, to change without being consumed by change. This isn't about deleting your social media or moving to a cabin in the woods. It's about changing your relationship to the performance, about remembering that you're the actor, not the character, that you can choose when to play and when to stop, that behind all the versions of you, there's someone watching, someone tired, someone real, someone who doesn't need to be optimized. Start small. Do one thing today without documenting it. Have one conversation without networking. Feel one emotion without analyzing its impact on your brand. Let yourself be boring. Let yourself be nobody. Let yourself exist without producing existence. See what happens when you stop feeding the machine, when you stop being liquid and start being human. If this burned something inside you, don't let it go out. Share it. Not because it'll help my engagement metrics, but because someone you know is drowning in their own performance. Someone is exhausted from becoming. Someone needs to hear that it's okay to stop, that there's life after likes, that there's self after sales, that there's being after brand. Follow if you want more uncomfortable truths. Subscribe if you're ready to question everything you've been sold about yourself. But most importantly, remember this: you are not a product, you are not a brand, you are not a performance. You are the exhausted human behind all these screens, and you deserve to rest, to be, to exist without proving your existence. Bauman is gone, but his question remains: who are you when you stop becoming?